Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Voice Matters with Jen Chambers. Today, we're going to explore developing inner strength. We're going to be guided by some insights from a book I've been reading. A lot of you are familiar with it. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. We're going to focus on the paths to recovery section. They talk about healing trauma, owning yourself, self-leadership, inhabiting your body, and finding your voice. And we'll weave in some writing exercises, a short guided meditation with breath work and mantras. You know, I love those. And some trusted resources to help support your journey. This episode is kind of personal and conversational, so I would love for you to think of it as sitting down with a friend for a cup of tea while we explore these ideas together. It's been on my mind a lot, so let's jump in. Healing from trauma, owning yourself. Trauma can shatter our sense of self. As van der Kolk poignantly writes, they say, trauma robs you of the feeling that you are in charge of yourself, quote unquote. Trauma hijacks our body and it hijacks our mind when we feel that intense fear and anxiety and numbness. It's almost like an invisible weight presses on our chest. The challenge of recovery, he says in this book, is to, quote, reestablish ownership of your body and your mind, of yourself, unquote. In other words, what he's saying is healing means reclaiming your sense of agency and your self-leadership, knowing what you feel and what you think without being overwhelmed by it. You might kind of relate to this. After my own trauma, with my brain injury particularly, I remember feeling like I was a passenger in my own life. I mean, sometimes when you are a survivor of trauma, you are constantly in that high alert stage and you kind of never get out of it. You're always waiting and always on edge. But in this book, van der Kolk reminds us that recovery is possible, and it's about feeling free to trust yourself again. He explains that we want to reach a place where we can, quote, know what you know and feel without becoming overwhelmed, enraged, ashamed, or collapsed, unquote. So in practical ways, this means he wants us to learn how to soothe our alarmed nervous system and find calm in our body and our mind. And then this can gradually help you be fully alive in the present. I was thinking about this particularly. I was interviewed yesterday by a friend of mine, and I'm so excited to be able to put that out and tell you guys. But her episode's not out yet. But it was an incredible interview by my friend Dana, and the show is called Girls Who Recover. And through her conversation, I realized how much I thought that I didn't trust myself, but also that that's been a guiding principle of my life. I had to, because I didn't know who I was. I was always reacting to, as a person with a brain injury, you don't remember who you are, so you're kind of reacting to the kind of an amalgam of what everyone else, what their idea is of you. So you have to sift through that and find which pieces work. And so I really had to find what things were real and what things were true in order to trust myself. So van der Kolk says that the first step to finding this calm is in something called self-awareness. So why don't you get out a piece of paper and try this writing exercise to begin owning yourself. I want you to sit quietly and take a few deep breaths. Now, right at the top of the page, where do I feel safety in my body right now? Where do I feel tension or fear? Then take a few minutes and write freely about one part of your body, your hands, it could be your heart, your shoulders, and what emotions or sensations you're noticing there. Describe them honestly. Think about if you're helping a friend understand exactly what's going on with you. I personally carry a lot of tension and fear in my lower back. I don't know. I tend to feel a lot of safety in my heart area. I don't know about you, but take a few minutes and write about that. It's really interesting to write about exactly where in your body you're feeling these feelings of safety or the opposite, tension or fear. Remember that this kind of journaling is a safe way to process emotions, and it can help you reclaim your narrative. One of the things that I talk about is that how your voice matters. And writing is one of the ways that helps you reclaim your narratives, and it helps you piece together the things that you've experienced and piece together who you are both inside and outside of your trauma. They talk about that at a website called elevationbehavioraltherapy.com. It's interesting. I'm going to link to all of these things at the end, and I'll talk about them on the website. But I like to use lots of resources for this. So this journaling is about taking back the pen to your life story. So even just 5 minutes of free writing in this way can help activate the reflective part of your brain, the executive part that kind of gets overridden by the trauma. It's kind of a way to sort of go in the back door to your inner self. And after you're done writing, I'd love for you to read your words back to yourself in a kind way. You don't have to read it out loud. I mean, you can if you want to. But this simple act of being able to voice your inner world to yourself is a very powerful step towards self-ownership. Over time, you'll notice patterns, things that are your triggers, things that are your core beliefs, things that are your strengths, pop out and really make themselves known to you. Each of these insights is a piece of yourself coming back into view. Putting the pieces together, self-leadership. Trauma and experiencing that often fragments yourself into parts. The scared child, the angry protector, or the numbed avoider. Kolk talks about in his book, he references the internal family systems style of therapy, which calls this self-leadership. So the idea is that everybody has an inner leader or a self that can listen to and gently guide all the other parts. So in everyday terms, self-leadership then, it means that you're noticing when one of the parts takes over, like you're feeling suddenly or panicky or critical. And instead of being carried away with this thought, you can kind of come back as a calm observer. I see the fear, and you can nurture yourself and care for it. It's a very interesting thing to really kind of be outside of the fear in that way. Here is a different writing exercise to practice that, the self-leadership idea. I'd love for you to get another piece of paper and write a letter to your parts. Pick one inner part that you know well. And this is your interior monologue. The several interior monologues that we all have. Is it your skeptic? Is it the caretaker? Is it the rebel? Write a letter from that part of yourself's perspective. So what is the skeptic feeling? What is it trying to protect you from? Or the caretaker, what are they trying to protect you from, and what are they feeling? So then you write a response as your whole self, being warm and understanding, and acknowledging those feelings. And then reassure yourself that you, as the leader, the self, the capital S self, have it all handled. This kind of back and forth, it sounds chaotic, but it lets you recognize and organize the pieces of your interior, and then you can put them back together under your conscious direction. I like the idea that van der Kolk says, it's funny, when I was recovering, I had what I felt like was 3 people inside of me. I didn't have multiple personality disorder, but I had like the person before my accident and the person after my accident. 2 completely different people. And I didn't know the person before because I couldn't remember them. And then there was also the person during the recovery time when I was trying to figure it out. So it was almost like I had those 3 people inside of me, and I couldn't quite get to the self part, the warm and understanding part. So I like the way that he is able to acknowledge that I think a lot of people have those different, everybody's got the critic inside. What are they protecting you from? What does everybody have? There's that warm, nurturing part of yourself too, the caretaker. But what is that protecting you from? It's interesting. It's like using this, it helps restore your confidence, even exploring this idea. It's like reassembling a picture. You're picking up each shard and putting it back together, kind of. As van der Kolk talks about, knowing that you're in charge and you're steering the ship, even if it's a little confusing, it's empowering. So with practice, you'll find that your voice of self-doubt or fear grows more quiet, and then you can regain some of that confidence and your playfulness and your creativity because you feel safe. And remember that this idea of self-leadership doesn't mean being perfect, of course. It just means an easier way to return to your center. And being able to return to that center at times of stress is a really important skill to have. All right, let's pause here. We'll do a guided meditation with some visualization and some breath work. You might close your eyes for a moment whenever it's safe, or you can just keep them softly focused. Sit down or lie comfortably. Imagine a strong, safe presence at the base of your spine, like a tree with deep roots. Feel that support firmly under you. Now I want you to picture that presence gently radiating warmth up through your body. As you breathe in, I want you to visualize that warm light traveling from your roots up to the top of your head. As you exhale, imagine any tension you have melting away, especially in any of those areas that you noticed holding tension. Now I want you to notice your breath, the rhythm of the inhale and the rhythm of the exhale. Try counting. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 1. Exhale for 6. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 1. Exhale for 6. Doing this kind of breath work engages the parasympathetic nervous system. So this one's really important. It's the rest and digest mode. And scientists have shown lots of times that the rest and digest mode helps reduce the stress hormones. That brings down the cortisol and the adrenaline, and it calms the anxiety in your brain. In fact, in this book, van der Kolk and others were talking about how breathwork and body-based practices, like yoga, are powerful for healing trauma because they help process the emotional wounds that are stored in the body. As you breathe, you can quietly or silently repeat a simple mantra that feels soothing to you. You could say something like, I am safe. I trust myself. Or even a single word. You could use peace or love. Pick one that resonates with you. On each inhale, I want you to mentally say, I, and on the exhale, say, am safe, for example. So break it up a little bit. As you're breathing, notice what it feels like to speak this to yourself. I want you to stay here for a couple of minutes. And just think about allowing the breath and imagery to ground you. When you're ready, gently bring your attention back. Notice the feelings in your body, and notice the air going through your nose and out your mouth. Giving you the fuel that you need. You might notice a tiny bit more ease in your body. Your mind might be a little bit quieter, just a couple of degrees. Just a few moments of meditation like this can be like a mini reset. It's proof that you can inhabit the present moment and your body, even if only for a moment, and feel okay. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the present. Now I want to talk about learning to inhabit your body, and with yoga. I know that there are a lot of feelings about yoga. I'm trained as a yoga teacher in a couple of different disciplines. It's something that has been very, very helpful to me, but I do want to acknowledge that I'm not saying that this is a fix for everything. I'm certainly not prescribing this for anyone, and I'm not saying that it's going to cure what ails you. I'm mostly speaking of it as it regards to this book and how to help yourself kind of heal. So take it with a grain of salt. Now, the idea in this book, The Body Keeps the Score, talks about how trauma often disconnects us from our bodies. He talks a lot about how we might feel numb or too sensitive. He reminds us that feeling at home in your body is a crucial element to feeling whole. He writes, quote, only making it safe for trauma victims to inhabit their bodies can lead to lasting healing, unquote. So in our meditation just now, we took a tiny step towards that, noticing your breath and your sensations in a safe and controlled way. So physical practices like yoga or qigong or martial arts or even dance can help create new experiences. And your body can see that as proof that movement can be safe, which I think is a really interesting example. So stretching, which is basically what yoga is on a base level, it can help release tension and deliver oxygen to different parts of your body. Being mindful while you walk can show you that you can choose how you move rather than just react on autopilot. Bessel's own research found that 10 weeks of a trauma-sensitive yoga program markedly reduced PTSD symptoms in people who hadn't responded to other treatments. That's pretty interesting. That's really cool. And he says that this is because such practices are kind of a way to recalibrate your autonomic nervous system. That makes sense. I mean, it's another way to build pathways, right? And you're also building a sense of control. Okay, get out one more piece of paper. Here's another writing exercise or something you can use in your journal. And it's particularly nice to use after a movement session. It's called body scan journaling. After doing something like gentle yoga or a relaxing stretch, I want you to sit down with that journal. Starting your toes and moving up, I want you to write one word or sentence about each major body part. How is it feeling? Is it warm or tense or relaxed? This is kind of an extension of what we did earlier. For example, you could say, my feet are heavy and relaxed and pointed outwards. My shoulders are still kind of tight. My heart feels warm and calm. But my shoulders are still scrunched and feel kind of angry. This helps connect your mind and body in another way because you're becoming aware of it. And then over time, you start to notice patterns. Maybe the stress keeps clinging to your shoulders, for example, and maybe you need to do something different to address that. It's just a way to continually help practice that mind-body connection. It helps you gradually learn that your body can help you and keep you safe through your life. It's neat too, because doing this kind of thing, I'm actually in the process of doing this right now. It helps you reclaim the pleasure of these simple things, like the feelings of your breath, expanding your belly, and the strength in your legs as you walk, and the coolness of your hands. And then you don't live in dread of your body's signals. Each one of these helps whisper to yourself that you're alive and you're safe here. Finding your voice, rhythms, and theater. We often think of healing as something that we do by ourselves or with a therapist. But in this book, Kolk talks about the power of communal healing, which is fascinating to me. He recalls how music and rhythm in collective ceremonies, things like civil rights marches or truth and reconciliation hearings, they bind together people who might otherwise be terrified, but collectively become powerful advocates for themselves and for others. I had this feeling when I was participating in some protests in the last several months. It was an outstanding feeling. You are helping each other, give each other hope and courage, and feel that you're in community doing something important. And it was an amazing feeling. And then things like music and dance, group activities like that are things that literally and metaphorically help give voice to things that are hard to talk about. Things like with the truth and reconciliation hearings in South Africa, Reverend Desmond Tutu would interrupt the testimony sometimes with communal singing and prayer. And this act of moving and singing together, the victims kind of were able to go out of reliving the horror and then help them find words to describe what happened to them, as I've read. I think that's an incredible thing to be able that act helped, that shared ritual helped those people express what the trauma had made almost inexpressible, that they were able to stand up and say and speak their truth. Similarly, things like theater and storytelling can be incredibly healing as well. In the book, Kolk talks about working with programs where survivors enact or improvise their stories. He talks about how theater involves a confrontation with realities of their condition and then gives trauma survivors a chance to connect with each other. They can experience their commonalities that way. I was able to be a part of this in a small way by witnessing a group of veterans and help them learn how to tell their stories in front of an audience. And whether or not they told it themselves. The idea that they were able to write down the things that had happened to them and the senses of loss that they experienced helped all the other people understand. Engaging in this kind of rhythm or drama can really be a different way to help your inner voice be heard. And that might not be your way. If you're not a performer, that's fine. You don't have to perform it for anyone else. You can still write it, or you can sing about it for yourself, even if you're not really a singer. Here's a couple of ideas. You could write a poem, write a song lyrics about your experiences. It can be raw and angry. It could be gentle. Any form is fine. If you write this down just for yourself, nobody's going to judge you about it. If you feel safe, you could read it out loud and say it out loud. You could whisper it. It's kind of interesting. He says that giving yourself permission to hear your own voice say your things that are true can be profoundly liberating. He says even speaking one sentence, I survived that, or I deserve to heal, starts to shift your inner narrative. This can be incredibly vulnerable. So, these are just ideas. Like I say, take them at your own pace. Take them with a grain of salt. The goal is to break the silence inside. Like van der Kolk says, these things are about telling the truth to yourself and others if you choose. But every word you voice, even in a journal or in the shower, it's like a thread stitching together your story. Recommended resources. Like I said, I'm going to put these in the show notes. I think it's important. I always try and cite my sources when I can, because I'm definitely not the expert. I'm just on this journey like everybody else. And I'm excited to, to share this book because it was incredibly helpful for me. Excuse me. Of course, so the book that I'm talking about today is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. It's foundational. There's another good book called Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine, and a book called Healing the Fragmented Selves of Trauma Survivors by Janina Fisher. There are websites too. The U.S. National Institute of Mental Health has pages on trauma and PTSD. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration offers a free trauma workshop online. There's traumaresearchfoundation.org, which is an organization that's founded by van der Kolk. There's interviews and information there. And there's also resources for childhood trauma, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, with tips and support. Also, there's several podcasts you could try. The Trauma Therapist Podcast, where host Guy McPherson interviews experts on trauma treatment. And then there's the Healing Trauma Podcast with Monique Coven. She's a certified trauma coach and survivor, and they share stories and tools. One of my favorite ones for broader mental health and resilience is We Can Do Hard Things by Glennon Doyle and friends. It talks about your inner strength and living fully. Oh, it's just a joyous and rich resource. I learn something new every time I listen to that, and they just feel like friends. You can also use mindfulness apps like the Insight Timer or Headspace. There's guided meditations, and then, of course, there's yoga and breathwork classes a lot of them are free on YouTube. Can be really easy ways to start. You could join something local if you want to for a communal style of healing. These are just starting points. Your right support might be a professional therapist. Mine certainly has. Could be a support group or a friend or just your journal. But building inner strength often means trying many avenues. There is no one-size-fits-all path, which was a really hard thing for me to learn. But the key is to pick the ones that make you feel safe and hopeful. And unfortunately, it's not linear. I feel like I have to keep picking different things. All right, here's a recap of the takeaways today. We were talking about owning yourself, which means regaining control. Van der Kolk talks about how trauma steals your sense of being in charge of yourself. And recovery is about reclaiming that. He says journaling and self-reflection are simple things that you can start piece yourself back together with. And then we talked about practicing self-leadership, about learning to have a dialogue with your inner parts and guide them gently, and how small acts of self-awareness restore your self-confidence. We also did a fast meditation. Remember that your breath is powerful and it's an anchor that you can always go back to. Even just taking a couple of slow, conscious breaths can help calm your nervous system. And we talked about how we can inhabit our body through movement. Keeping those body-oriented practices help strengthen your autonomy over your own physical self. And we talked about finding your voice. You're not alone if you can't find yours sometimes. Sometimes drumming or singing or dancing or theater, even if it's only for you, even if it's writing and speaking just for yourself, are ways to express in a different way what words often fail to capture. They've helped other people, of course, through unimaginable pain. But in your own time, let your voice be heard in whatever form feels right for you. Above all, this whole idea of inner strength is a gradual buildup. Every prompt that you write, every deep breath you're taking, and every truth that you're speaking to yourself is like strength training for your soul. It's normal to have ups and downs, and healing is definitely not linear. But keep reminding yourself that you can trust yourself again. Thank you so much for joining me today. I like to share the resources that have been working for me, and I hope these insights and exercises can help you take another step on your path. Be kind to yourself and keep listening. Your voice truly matters. See you next time.
Sometimes we have to start over. Sometimes we have to fight back. Sometimes it's all too much. Lost inside the black. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Sometimes we need to lift the voices of those who've overcome and expose the ones that made the choices to stay and fight, not run.